I've got 4 easy fixes for you that can turn your dialogue into something that actually makes your book 1,000 times better and makes the plot even more intriguing and keeps the reader hooked on who your character is and trying to figure out what's going on. Because that's the number one mistake I see a lot of people making. They think dialogue's just there to kind of fill up the page or add some small talk or just really show off that fancy accent that your character has. But it's not. Dialogue is a plot tool. Dialogue is a way to intrigue the reader. Dialogue is a way to send a message without spelling it out. And I'm going to show you how. Now, trust me, I didn't know all this stuff when I first started out. I wrote 10 books in 8 years. I was rejected a lot before I finally started putting the pieces together and realizing how a good book goes together. That changed everything and gave me a career that I'm super proud of and very blessed to have had. Now, before we dig right in, I want to say no line of dialogue is ever going to be perfect. And if you expect yourself to have perfection on every single page and every single character interaction, you will never finish your book. And listen, I know all about the need to be perfect. That's a whole other video and a whole other therapy session. I have that same gene that a lot of you have where I'm like, oh, if this isn't perfect, I shouldn't move on. You got to let go of that and start to learn to write from your gut. Number one, people tend to write dialogue that's really on the nose, like spells out everything. I don't know about what kind of conversations you're having with your family and friends and strangers, but very, very, very few of them are spelling everything out. When you have a conversation with somebody who already knows you, they don't bring up your whole past. It's not like a soap opera where on Monday morning they got to recap what happened last week. And the main character is like, remember Jeremy, who was your dad, but we passed him off as your uncle, and then he got married to your cousin? Like they recap the whole thing. That's information that your character would already have and know. And so they don't need it all spelled out. The other thing you don't want your dialogue to do is to be too blatantly obvious about everything that your character is feeling or thinking or doing. For one, people don't tend to do that, particularly male characters. Men aren't big on just blurting out all their feelings for the most part. And women also keep a lot of cards close to their chest. So no matter what gender of character you are writing, or even if they're an alien, the chances of them just spilling everything they're feeling and thinking are zero. Characters also will have the same thing that regular people have, which is natural pauses and actions and other things that intersperse with their dialogue. Right now, I'm not doing really anything other than just talking to you guys, but that's because I'm making a video and I'm not talking to anyone else except for my camera and myself, essentially, and maybe Daisy. So I don't have the natural moments and pauses and actions that I would have in my day-to-day life. But the cool thing about having those, especially in a book, is that you can use them to increase the tension, drag something out, make it more emotional, really kind of leave a mystery. There's a million things you can do with the natural moments and actions that go into a character's life and keeps the dialogue from being too blatantly obvious. Let's take Riley Sager's The First Time I Lied. This is where the main character and like her boyfriend are talking. The male character knows a lot about the female character. He knows her history, but he's not just spelling it out. She's at a gallery opening and he says, "You're allowed to enjoy this, you know." She replies, "I know. And you can be proud of yourself. There's no need to feel guilty. Artists are supposed to be inspired by life experiences. That's what creativity is all about." They don't go into all of it in dialogue because people just don't. Then we can look at Close Your Eyes and Count to 10 with Lisa Unger, where there's something that happened with the main character's husband, but we don't know what for quite some time in the book. And the people kind of talk around it, but that's because they lived it. They already experienced it before the book started. That's the thing you have to keep in mind. A book starts in media res, in the middle of characters' lives. So these things have already happened. They're not going to rehash them every single time they get together, but they're going to intrigue you in the book because they're just going to kind of dance around the truth. The main character is talking to, I think, an FBI agent. In the foyer, he stopped and turned around. "Most people get caught, you know." She didn't say anything. Life on the run is no life. There's no comfort in it. People start to miss their families. Regret sets in. Usually it's weddings or funerals where we get them. Calls on birthdays or anniversaries. Even people in witness protection whose lives depend on staying hidden can't always stay away forever. Now, we don't know why her husband is on the run. We haven't even figured that out yet in the book. But we can see that there's a potential for him to be found. We just don't know what he's hiding from or why he's hiding. Adele found herself shaking her head. Miller won't come back. Now it was Agent Coben's turn to stay silent. He doesn't care about us, she said. If he did, he never could have done this or stayed away so long. What did he do? Why has he stayed away so long? How long has it been? What did he do to them? All of those are questions that are left by this dialogue because it's not just on the nose. It is sort of leaving some doubt in there. And how you do that is you think to yourself, would these characters already know this information? And is it logical that they would be rehashing it again and again and again? Because in real life, we don't tend to do that. They would not logically rehash information they already know. So if it's starting to read kind of like a Monday recap on a soap opera, then you need to cut a lot of that out. You want to intrigue the reader, not overwhelm the reader with information. Now, wait, people will say, what if my reader doesn't know this? And then they have so many questions. And so then they're going to close the book because they're so confused. The point is to make the reader have questions. The point is not to give the reader all the answers, because once the reader has all the answers, the reader will definitely close the book. You want the reader to wonder what's going on. There's the second thing, which your dialogue really has to do. It shows the character and separates one character from the other. A lot of people just write dialogue where everybody sounds the same. If you can't determine which character is saying something, then you have a problem with your dialogue. I highly suggest studying people like Robert Parker, who used almost no dialogue tags, but you could always tell when it was Hawk or Spencer or Susan speaking because the character sounded different enough in the way that they approached things, the jokes that they made, the things that were important to them, the things that they stressed, that you would know without having a dialogue tag who was talking. That's what you want to have. So that means going a little bit deeper than just writing the dialogue. It means knowing where your character came from, how old they are, what prejudices or issues they have, what they're afraid of, what kind of person they are. Are they an extroverted person? Are they an introverted person? Are they an emotional person or a very analytical person? Those things are part and parcel of who the character is and makes up their unique dialogue. So you've got to really know your character. And to do that, I have a handy dandy free handout that you can download. The link is in the description that helps you really dig deep into your character. You can extrapolate from that character handout and say, okay, how would somebody with this history, with this age, with this demographic, with this geographical location, how would somebody like this speak? You can see in Michael Carita's book that Sterling is really trying to control everything and he's trying to be right all the time. Whereas Israel is kind of trying to be not really evasive, but not give information because to him, it's none of Sterling's damn business. And you can see that in the way he speaks. So what if you find yourself writing your dialogue and it's still similar and everything's coming out kind of flat and just boring? You're struggling to really make these characters sound different. I have a tip for you that is the way that I do dialogue. I actually speak my dialogue aloud as I write it. I'm looking for a lot of different things when I'm doing that. I'm looking for the natural patter of speech. And I'm also looking for how this character sounds. Does this sound like a male in his 50s? Does this sound like a 15-year-old girl? Does it sound like the way I imagine these people to be? The other thing you absolutely want to avoid is a lecture. Nobody likes to read a huge lecture. It's not generally realistic that one person would be talking and the other person would not say anything back, wouldn't move, wouldn't have an action, wouldn't do any of those things. Number two, it's boring. Have you ever been lectured to? When I was a kid, and I didn't get in trouble a whole lot, but when I did get in trouble, my mother would sit me down at the kitchen table and either give me her $10 lecture or her $100 lecture. The $10 lecture was like 5 minutes, in and out, done. The $100 lecture was like, it felt like hours because she would just go on and on about what I was doing wrong and why I shouldn't do it wrong. And I would dread that. Oh my God, I'm going to get the $100 lecture. Nobody likes that. And it didn't really have much effect on me because you start tuning out, right? You get a couple minutes in and you're like, I'm not listening to this anymore. And you're already thinking of your argument back or the reason why this person doesn't make any sense or whatever is going on in your head. It's the same when your reader is reading the book. When they get too deep into this huge lecture by another character, they start tuning it out. They're skipping ahead saying, I don't care what they have to say. I want to just get to the next action. Because action is what makes your book go along quickly and keep the reader intrigued. And when you have too much dialogue, what happens? You lose the action. Everything kind of grinds to a halt while you're just listening to somebody drone on and on and on. In Lisa Unger's book, the main character's little boy gets in trouble at school. And she could have this big, huge lecture in the car. But because Lisa doesn't put that in, there's a whole lot more that is left unsaid, and the actions propel the plot forward. Let's go home, kiddo, she said. He nodded, rising, followed her to the car. So you're really not going to tell me who did it? She asked as they took the winding rural road back to the house. So now they're acting, right? They're moving, they're doing stuff. She chose the long way home so that they wouldn't have to pass the house they used to live in on the way to the place they rented now in a very different part of town. If he'd noticed, he didn't say anything. So what does Lisa Unger drop in that character's thoughts just for a second there? A little intrigue, like, why are they not living in that house anymore? Why are they renting a house? Why is she avoiding that other house? We don't know. It leaves questions for the reader. And she doesn't say anything about that to her son, which is also kind of leaving stuff out in a very natural way. Does it matter? He asked. I think it does. Yeah, she said, because people should not be allowed to hurt you, Blakey. That is such a great emotional moment there with the mom. Instead of her going on and on about you shouldn't have gotten a fight and this was really bad and what are we going to do about your grades and you might get kicked out of school, she says, people should not be allowed to hurt you. That ties into something else that I've said in other videos where you want to have parts that are highlightable in your book, meaning the reader's going to read that and go, oh, that really hit me right here in the feels. Not only do these characters not sound the same, the son definitely sounds like a kid and the mom sounds like a mom, but there's a lot that they are leaving unsaid, which makes it even more intriguing. Sometimes just breaking apart your dialogue with an action, or just having the character take a breath, or turn away, or pick up a dish, or take a sip of coffee, whatever you want to do to break up the dialogue, can add this little layer of emphasis and tension that takes your dialogue and transforms it from ordinary and flat to something that really does a job on the page. Another great example of doing this is found in An Honest Man by Michael Carita. This is 3 characters in the scene. Sterling and Israel already know their history, so they don't go into a lot of depth here in terms of this information that Israel's about to give. Salazar, the FBI agent, doesn't know everything, so Israel gives her some info, but not all of it. He also doesn't go into a big, huge lecture. He tells her just enough information. But you keep the big boat, Salazar said. Why not sell it? Those answers are going to tell you who killed those 7 people on the yacht, Israel asked. There was a beat. Sterling squinting at him and Salazar leaning back. That silver bracelet like a handcuff sliding from her wrist up her forearm, the blank notepad sitting before her. The red light on the recorder glowed. My grandfather built that boat, Israel said. One of the last ones he made at a boatyard that was pretty famous in its day. It belonged in the family. His uncle's jaw tightened at that. What Carita has created here is much more than just dialogue. He has blended it together beautifully with actions and reactions, because there's a lot of dialogue that is completely unsaid. That is how a character reacts, what they don't say, what they keep to themselves, the way that they, scoff or turn away. All of those are unspoken reactions to things. And not speaking is sometimes just as powerful as speaking. When you put it all together, the things that are said and unsaid, the actions that the character takes, the reactions that the other characters have, the way that the character leaves out little bits of the history to create intrigue for the reader, you get something where the dialogue is so powerful. It's not just filling up the space on the page. It is creating intrigue and a compelling need to turn the page to figure out what happens next. The conversation goes on a little bit more, and I want you to see how Michael Carita brings all of these kinds of things together into one little teeny tiny section that set up so much tension for the reader. You absolutely have to know what's coming in the next chapter. For the memories, Salazar asked. There was a pulse behind Israel's eyes. He made himself flatten his hands, pressed his palms against his knees. Sure, the memories. Just the breaking apart of those 2 lines? Sure, the memories. It's flat, deadpan, a little bit sarcastic. It tells you a lot that there's something that Israel is hiding about this boat and why he's kept it. It is absolutely brilliantly done. Sometimes just leaving a few things out, a few details, a few things that the characters wouldn't naturally talk about because they already know it, can transform a scene into one that grips the reader and keeps them going. That's what dialogue is, a tool. And when this tool is used correctly, it can totally change your book. Let me know in the comments what else you're struggling with dialogue and how I can help you fix it so that your next book can be amazing. Don't forget to share this video with other writers that are struggling because, hey, life is hard enough. Let's not be in this alone. And don't forget to subscribe and like just so these kinds of videos come up for more writers like you. In the meantime, I highly suggest checking out this video about developing a really strong character because when you know your character, you create dialogue that is very true to who they are.